Airtech Mortology here, and I'm back to talk about Masters of the Air Season 1, Episode 3, and my thoughts on this episode. An amazing episode, absolutely fantastic. This literally went up a gear, in my opinion. Wow. This episode showed how bad it can get for a bomber pilot in World War II, which was just amazing. And, because in a lot of movies, in a lot of history books, you kind of tend to see the bomber crews as kind of getting a little bit of an easy job. I know that they were in danger, but some people would think, yeah, you get to bomb, go home, have tea, all that stuff. And say, infantry's worse or navy could be worse. But watching this episode, it shows how bad it can get if you're a bomber pilot. And I have to mention some of the scenes in this episode. You had heartbreaking scenes. You had amazing combat scenes. It was just epic. And there is no time wasted in this episode. Every minute is important. Every minute something is happening. We're not wasting time. We're not getting bored. No, it's just great scene after great scene. And that was just absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. Absolutely brilliant. Yes, CGI, I will always keep mentioning this because it is still an issue for me. It could be a bit better at certain places. I'm not saying it's terrible, I'm just saying certain places it's obvious what it is. But my God, I love this episode. I have watched it 3 times already. It was just that good. I had to watch it again and again. Wow. Just amazing. And, there's like one scene where they do a slow-mo and it just looks amazing. And then my other favourite scene, which is the most heartbreaking scene of this episode, is one of the scene with the bull pilot. When I mean that is the bull turret gunner. And in this scene, it is like you understand what this guy has to do, but he knows if he does that, this person is basically dead. And that is just such a heartbreaking scene to watch. It really is. And it's a kid as well. And oh my God, it's just so bad. But I want to give a little bit of a backstory to the history to the ball turret. Now, the ball turret on the bottom of a flying fortress was literally the worst position you could be placed in on a bomber crew, because you only get seconds to bail out. You're in a confined space, and in this episode it shows you one of the most dangerous parts of the turret is that certain things can get stuck, and if that happens you are pretty much dead. And a lot more people died in that ball turret than died in any other part of the bomber crew, because if it went down in the tailspin, if it went any sort of angle, you'd pretty much be fucked in that ball turret. So that's one of the most dangerous positions to be placed in on a bomber crew. So I kind of love that they kind of showed that in this episode. And yeah, I'm enjoying the history of these episodes. It's World War II. It's really interesting history. And again, the episode was just amazing. So it's a 10 out of 10 for me. I'm still just gobsmacked. I really am. That was a great episode. 10 out of 10. Watch it if you haven't watched it. Let's get into spoilers now. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So, the episode starts off with us getting a briefing about the 100th next bomber mission. And this mission is going to be one of the most important missions they've ever been on, because it is going to be going the furthest into Germany any bomber crew has ever gone. And with this announcement, they have also announced that they are not only going to be bombing further into Germany, but after the mission, they are going to go all the way down to Africa to land after it. Now, the reason they're doing this is because they're trying to test out a system of bombing Germany, land in Africa to fool the Germans and see if that works. Because what you're supposed to do after a bomber mission is bomb the target and then turn around and fly back to England. And the Germans have gotten used to that. So this is a way to trick the Germans into thinking that they are going to do that exact same thing, but head somewhere else and, fool the Germans, basically. And also in this episode, we find out that the bombers have just changed their priorities on their bombing missions. They're no longer just bombing Nazi submarines anymore. They're now focusing on the industrial industry in Germany to destroy Germany's ability to build any weapons to fight this war with, which is what was happening in the middle of the war. Bombers started to concentrate more on the industrial side of Germany than random, or at least on multiple things. In this part of the war, just focus on Germany's ability to build things, and that will knock them out of the war faster. So they get the briefing. Bucky is given permission to go on this mission as well, because turns out this mission is also going to be the biggest bomber formation ever sent into Germany, or the biggest mission ever sent by humankind. So obviously Bucky doesn't want to miss this opportunity, so he gets himself transferred to one of the bombers as a reserve pilot. But we all know the only reason he's going on this mission is because he doesn't want to miss this opportunity to be in the largest formation of bombers ever sent. Buck kind of acknowledges that he probably forced his way on this mission, and he is still kind of concerned that Bucky's not taking this war as seriously as he is. So I think what we're seeing between them now is they're starting to become a little bit apart from each other. At the beginning they were very, close, but I think Buck is kind of getting annoyed at Bucky for not seeing this war as seriously as he does. So I am enjoying their relationship with each other with that in mind. So we also find out in this briefing that they have to delay the mission for a day because of the weather in England, because it's a fog out there. So if there's fog, you tend not to want to fly your massive bombers that are going to be in close formation, because then they can barely see each other and they could crash into each other and kill each other. So the mission is delayed until the fog's gone. So the bomber crews are waiting on the airfield, for the go order. So they're all just sitting around talking, making jokes. Some were making riddles. But then we meet this one air crew that becomes very important in part of this episode, where we're introduced to Quinn and Babyface. So Babyface, he's young, he's asking about the fog, like why don't they leave him straight away to get this mission over and done with. Quinn kind of tells them that yes, they could leave, but that would put them in serious danger because of the fog. Babyface says they're in a flying fortress and the pilots get paid to fly in this sort of weather, but Quinn kind of tells them yes, they can fly in this weather, but it's too dangerous right now for them. And the Air Force doesn't want to risk everybody's lives in such a ridiculous, way. Just wait and calm down. There'll be enough time to get this mission over and done with, basically. That's what Quinn tries to, tell Babyface. We see Buck is very nervous. You see most of the men are nervous, but you can see Buck is really nervous because he understands how serious this mission is, how bad this mission is probably going to be for the 100th because of how deep they're going into Germany and how they are having to bomb a lot of the manufacturing of Germany because, again, to get them out of the war. And as they're trying to do that, he knows the Germans are going to be very, very determined to stop them. Again, at this part of the war, Germany is starting to get serious losses from Russia, and with the Americans in the war, the Germans are trying to build up a massive defence force against them and Britain. So Buck understands that the Germans are going to be bloody on this mission. We then see Bucky. As his normal self, he's laid back. He can't wait for this mission. He just wants to get this done. So, yeah, I guess what you gotta like about Buck. He loves this job. He loves doing this, and he's not afraid. You gotta give it to the guy for that. But we soon get the base soon gets the orders from Bomber Command to launch the mission. But unfortunately, there is a problem. The commander of the base gets told, yes, they are a go, but the two other bomber groups are not being sent with the 100th. So they will be going on their own into deep Germany, and the commander realises this is going to be the bloodiest, this is going to be a very bloody mission for the 100th. Because they're going into hell on their own. So he sends them, they head off, we get the credit scene, we're then straight into Germany, where the Germans are firing a bit of flak, so the crews understand that means they are leaving their fighters open to attack the fortresses. The 100th start to realise they are on their own, that there are no other bomber groups coming, so everybody's kind of now trying to bunch up even closer together to give themselves more of a chance to defend against the against the Luftwaffe. They're then attacked by the Luftwaffe, and the Luftwaffe are coming in hard. They take out, I think, one flying fortress straight away, and then they start firing missiles. I think this is the first time we ever see on screen the Germans firing rockets at flying fortresses, and it's just such an epic scene when you see it. I mean, credit to the fucking CGI people. That looked real, that looked amazing. I mean, it was great. But yes, Luftwaffe are in, they're attacking the flying fortresses, and it is getting seriously bloody for the 100th. They're hitting, they're getting major casualties, and it is looking pretty bad for them. And the Luftwaffe start concentrating on Buck's air group, because they're behind. So as I think we all know, in these sort of formations, you always go for the back end first, because they would be the ones least covered by the other fortresses. So they concentrate on the back, and then it was kind of like concentrate on the back, concentrate on the middle, and then concentrate on the front. And that's what the German Luftwaffe would always do in these sorts of attacks, until they had the P-51s. But that's what the Germans used to do. So they're concentrating on Buck's group, and Buck's group just get completely massacred, I would say. They lose most of the flying fortresses in the group, and we get the scene with Babyface and Quinn. Now, their bomber gets absolutely massacred. They lose all 4 engines. The plane is pretty much going down. The pilot clicks the switch for the alarm to bail out. They abandon the plane. Quinn has to start eating a lot of the information on all the paper he has, because he doesn't want that falling into German hands. Most of the crew is just jumping out of the bomber, and before Quinn can jump out himself, he hears Babyface is stuck in the ball turret, and his door won't open, so he can't get out, and he's stuck on a plane that's about to crash. Quinn tries as hard as he can to try to get Quinn, but there is a point where you have to kind of think it's either him or me at this point. He knows he can't save him. He does feel massively guilty, and you have got to ask yourself, what would you do in that situation? You're in a flying fortress that's going down. There's no help coming. It's either you or him, and you could hear Babyface, and it's a kid. It's a kid, and you got to let him die. But it's also, Quinn's a kid himself, and it's like you want him to help him, but you, in the back of my head, it was like, get out now. There's nothing you could do. If you stay there, you're dead, and you got to leave. And then Quinn, and it's just such a heartbreaking scene. It is, but he has to leave him, and Babyface is begging him to come back, and I think he does. Again, he doesn't want to die, and nobody does. But unfortunately, Quinn has to save himself at this point. He jumps out of the plane, and then the flying fortress blows up and kills Babyface. And that was just such a... I mean, it brings like how bad the war can get for, individual people. And yeah, that was a great scene. So the flying fortresses are still getting attacked. Most of Buck's wing has been destroyed, so Buck orders his group to head closer to Bucky's group so that they can get some protection from them. Stay in a bigger formation, protect from the protect from the fighters. We then go back to England, where the officers are receiving communications that all the Luftwaffe bases in Germany are now sending their fighters to attack the 100th. So it's going to get worse for them, because every Luftwaffe group is heading to pretty much kill them. So we get back to the 100th. They're getting just absolutely fucked completely. You see more flying fortresses going down. We then see Colin. Is it Colin? Kurt, that's it. Kurt's plane gets seriously disabled, and a Luftwaffe plane fires directly into the cockpit, killing or at least seriously hurting his co-pilot. And Kurt, orders abandon ship, and everybody does. Colin then realizes, his co-pilot isn't dead, he's still alive, so Kurt tries to save both of them. I mean, the guy behind him tells him to, bail out with them. There's no way you can save the co-pilot at this point. It's either him or both of them. But Kurt stays on the plane, tries to land the plane. He thinks this... I mean, again, if you remember from last episode, he was kind of in this exact situation where the plane was falling down. And unfortunately, he thought he could do the same thing here with landing in one of the big fields. But unfortunately, he comes in way too hot on this airstrip. He hits the trees and hits the ground way too hard and blows up. And yes, we lost Kurt in this episode, which was really, really sad. And it just tells you sometimes you have just got to think about yourself at the end of the day when it comes to those sorts of missions. And yes, he could have got out. He could have got out. But he didn't want to leave his mate to die, and you can completely understand why he tried to save him, which is a sad scene, see him go. But yeah, they've gone. Buck's plane gets attacked again and gets hit by a missile, and one of his crew get killed by it. They are getting massively hit by the Germans, and more people are dying. They're also trying to keep an eye on each other's, planes. So if they do get hit, they count how many people, or at least how many shoots, come out of the plane, so they can make sure that they know how many people survived from those fortresses. And yeah, it's a pretty bad day for them. But at this same point, Buck's plane is getting more and more damaged, and his co-pilot keeps trying to get Buck to bail out, and this kind of gets on Buck's nerves. He grabs the co-pilot and just tells him, He doesn't want to spend the rest of this war in a prison cell, and pretty much just tells him to shut the fuck up and do his job. And he pretty much actually what he says is, we're going to sit here and take it, which is take everything the Germans are going to throw at them and keep fighting this war. And that was just such a great scene, in my opinion. We then get the slow-mo scene, and this slow-mo scene was just so amazing. You see all the Luftwaffe planes shooting slow, you see all the gunners shooting as well, you see all the debris from the other fortresses that have been destroyed. You then get this really bad scene of a person who's jumped out of a fortress and he just flies right at Buck's plane and gets cut in half by the propellers. And it was just, wow, that was harsh, man. But that's the reality of war. Crazy shit happens. And they're losing so many people. The Luftwaffe are getting so many kills. They are taking down as many as they can. Like, the gunners do take out a couple of planes, because Bucky grabs one of the guns and shoots down one of the Luftwaffe planes. And it's just such a great scene. I mean, again, every scene in this episode, I mean, this whole episode just shows you how bad it can be for them. I mean, they're losing so many planes, so many people are dying, and the Luftwaffe are just, I mean, not taking any mercy on them. Any. And it's just such a great episode altogether. So the Luftwaffe break off, head back to base to refuel and rearm. They then get to their bomber objectives, which is the Messerschmitt factories where they make the engines. They get there, they bomb it and destroy the target. So mission accomplished. And now comes the hard part, because this is the hard part now, getting all the way to Africa. But luckily, because they're heading to Africa, they don't see the Luftwaffe again. And then 5 hours after the 100th have bombed their target, the other two bomber groups were then sent. So, yeah, a massive fuck up. If you kind of see, I mean, again, I don't know why they didn't delay them. I mean, why didn't you just delay and wait for the other two bomber groups? Oh well, but that's what happened. So the bombers are heading off to Africa. Most of the planes that survived the main attack are now just falling apart, and people are just jumping out of the planes now. So they had, I think they lost about 10 fortresses getting to the target, and now they've got only 15, and then you just start seeing more and more planes fall apart and more crew jump out. They keep an eye on the chutes. Buck's plane is really damaged, so he then orders, oh no, that's not yet, sorry. No, the next scene is we meet back up with Quinn. Quinn has landed in Belgium. He finds a couple of locals, asks them for help. They do help him. They get him in contact with the Belgian resistance. And when the leader of the resistance comes to go to get Quinn, he tells Quinn to turn around and not look at his face. And the reason he does this is he doesn't want him to be able to identify him if in a lineup if the Gestapo, question him. So he's also doing this because he's going to give Quinn a choice. Does he want to surrender to the Germans and sit out the war in a prison, or does he want to go back to England and keep fighting the war? So he gives him that choice, but he gives him the caveat of, if you decide to go back to England, you will be wearing civilian clothes, and they will then treat you as a spy, and that means you'll be executed by the Germans if they catch you. So he gives Quinn this choice, and the episode leaves us on a cliffhanger with that. And we head back to the 100th on their way to Africa. They're over the sea now, and Buck's plane is seriously damaged. He's losing too much fuel. They don't think they can make it to Africa, so Buck orders that everything that isn't nailed down to be thrown from the plane. Unfortunately, one of the things that he's ordered to be thrown away is the bomber sights, which is a very classified and something the Americans don't want the Germans to get their hands on. So the bombardier kind of tells Buck, are you sure you wanted to dump this? But Buck assures him, as they're over water, the Germans ain't going to get their hands on it. So we then head off to Cross, who's navigating the entire group. He tells them that they're only about 2 minutes away from the airfield in Algeria. Some of the crew are kind of doubting that he's right, but turns out he is. They all land, they get there. Bucky does a count of the fortresses they have left. They left with 28 planes and are down to 11. So it was a very bloody mission for them. Buck is now heading towards the airfield himself. His plane is barely making it. He then has to turn off all the engines because it's just too dangerous to keep them on. So they turn into a glider. He then tells his co-pilot not to put down the landing gear yet until they get closer so that they can still glide onto the airfield. And then they put down the landing gear, hit the field and land safely. And if you look at Buck's plane, it's a fucking miracle it got there in the first place, because it was seriously fucked up. Bucky and another guy get into a German car, head off to meet Buck. Buck then gets out, he's wounded and is dead, because he did lose a guy on this mission, which does hit Buck pretty hard. And Bucky kind of tries to assure Buck, you know, the mission's completed, everything's great, but you can see that Buck isn't taking a loss of so many people as easy as Bucky is. They then realise that Kurt's also missing, and I think they both realise he's probably dead, which he is. And yeah, that's how the episode ends, with them in Algeria waiting for transport back to England to fight the mission. This was an amazing episode. It showed you how bad the war can get for the bombers' crews. The CGI was great. There were problems, but it was amazing. And again, this episode has just made this show go up a lot for me. It went up a gear, definitely. I can't wait for next week's episode. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot slower, but again, I'm trusting the team. I'm trusting Apple. This episode just really does give me a lot of hope that the majority of these episodes are going to be fantastic. And that's the end of my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this video, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. And if you have a comment, leave it below and I'll try to get back to it later. Enter Soldier. Bye.